Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're putting on our detective hats. We're going to crack the code on one of the biggest mysteries in business, budget variances. You know, when your results just don't match up with your plan. We'll figure out why and, crucially, what you can actually do about it.
So, you're staring at your report, right? And the numbers are just off. That's a variance. But you know, a variance is really just a clue. It's a signal. The real million-dollar question is, what now? I mean, you can't launch a full-blown investigation for every tiny little thing, can you? Of course not. What you need is a framework, a system for deciding which clues are actually worth chasing.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this investigation. First up, investigate or ignore. Then we'll look at the domino effect. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty with the usual suspects for both costs and sales. And we'll finish up with the final verdict. Let's get into it.
All right, first things first, we have to figure out whether to investigate or just ignore it. This is a huge step because before you spend a single dollar or a single minute of your team's time, you need a solid way to decide if a variance is even worth looking at. Because, let's be honest, not all clues are created equal. And this is the checklist that's going to guide you. It's a simple 4-point system. We're going to look at the type of variance, weigh the costs versus the benefits, check for any patterns over time, and even take a hard look at the original budgetary process itself. Let's break them down. So the first filter is super simple. Is it good news or bad news? An adverse variance, that's the bad news, where your costs are too high or your sales are too low, is almost always going to jump to the top of the pile. A favorable one? Well, that's good news, but you know how it is, we tend to focus on the problems first, right? Now this is the golden rule. Seriously, if you remember one thing, make it this. The cost of investigating something has to be less than the benefit you'd get from fixing it. Think about it. Investigations cost money. You're paying for your manager's time, your analyst's time. So the big question is it worth it? If the answer is no, you just have to let it go. And here's a perfect real-world example to hammer that home. Let's say your company spend an extra $50 on printer ink. Okay, it's an adverse variance, sure. But is it worth spending $500 of your manager's time to figure out why? No way. You've just turned a $50 problem into a $500 problem. So what do? You ignore it. You move on to bigger things. Okay, so a one-time thing, a small variance here or there, that could just be a fluke, right? Random noise. But what happens when that same variance pops up again next month and the month after that? And maybe it's getting worse. Well, that's not noise anymore. That's a pattern. It's like a slow leak that's turning into a real problem. And that is a huge red flag that you've got a deeper issue that you absolutely need to investigate. So, how do you decide when a pattern is actually a problem? Well, there are two main ways to go about it. On one hand, you've got the simple rule of thumb. This is basically using your managerial judgment, your gut feeling. You might just say, hey, anything over $1,000, we're going to look into it. It's quick, it's easy. On the other hand, you have the more scientific approach, a statistical model. This is where you figure out what's normal random fluctuation, what we call in control, and what's a genuine problem that's gone out of control. If it goes outside those set limits, it's time to act. All right, let's move on. Because a good detective knows that no clue exists in a vacuum. Variances are almost never isolated events. They're connected, they're interconnected, like a chain of dominoes, and you have to see the whole chain to really get what's going on. And this brings us to a really important exam keyword. Write this one down. Interdependence. All this means is that the cause of one variance can actually explain another one. You just can't look at these things in isolation. You have to see how they're linked to get the full story. Let me give you a classic example. Imagine your purchasing manager is a hero. They found a new supplier and they're getting materials way cheaper. Great, you get a nice, shiny, favorable price variance. But what if that cheap material is, well, cheap? It's lower quality, it causes more waste on the production line. Suddenly, you've got an adverse usage variance. See? The good variance directly caused the bad one. That's interdependence in action. And it works the same way with labor. Let's say you decide to bring in a more skilled, more senior team. Well, right away, that's going to give you an adverse rate variance because you're paying them more per hour. But here's the trade-off. Because they're so good, they get the job done way faster. And that gives you a massive, favorable efficiency variance. So you paid more per hour, but you ended up paying less in total. It's all connected. Let's look at one more, this time from the sales side of things. This is a classic. You decide to run a big sale. You slash your prices. Instantly, you've created an adverse sales price variance. You're making less on each item you sell. But What's the whole point of a sale? To sell more stuff. So that lower price drives a huge spike in demand, and you get a big, favorable sales volume variance that hopefully more than makes up for the discount.
Okay, the case is officially open. It's time for the real detective work to begin. We're going to identify the potential culprits behind your cost variances. Let's line up the usual suspects.
All right, first suspect, the material price variance. If your material costs are higher than you planned, these are the questions you need to ask. Did we switch suppliers? Did we change our order size and maybe lose a bulk discount? Did we get hit with surprise delivery charges? Or, and this one happens all the time, did our inventory control mess up, forcing us to make a last-minute emergency buy at a crazy high price?
Okay, next up, material usage variance. This is when you're just burning through more material than you thought you would. Why? Well, we already talked about how inferior quality stuff can cause waste, but it could be other things too. Is your staff handling it carelessly? Did you change the production method? Is inspection not catching flaws? Or, and you have to consider this, could it be something more serious, like theft? Now let's talk about the labor rate variance. This means you paid a different hourly rate than you budgeted for. The causes are usually pretty direct. Was there an unexpected pay increase, maybe from a new contract? Did you use more senior and therefore more expensive people on a job? Or did you pay out a bonus that wasn't in the original plan? Any of those could be the culprit.
And what if the job just took longer than it was supposed to? That's a labor efficiency variance. This one can be tricky. It could be poor supervision, it could be delays from resource shortages, it could even be that low-quality material again, causing problems for the team. But remember, this can go the other way too. Maybe you got a favorable variance because you brought in some new super fast machinery, or your team just got really good at a task. That's the learning curve in action.
All right, we have grilled the cost side pretty hard. Now let's flip the script and turn our investigative lens onto the other side of the business, sales. So when your sales numbers are off, the list of suspects can get pretty long. Did you run more discounts or special offers than you planned? How did that big marketing campaign actually do? Was it a home run or a total dud? What about your sales team's performance? Or maybe it's something totally outside your control, like the economy taking a downturn. And sometimes you got to look inward. Maybe the problem wasn't sales at all, but production couldn't make enough stuff to keep up with demand.
So we've gathered the clues, we've interrogated the suspects, we've connected the dots. What's the final verdict? Why does any of this actually matter?
Okay, and this is maybe the single most important thing to get right. Variance analysis is not about finding someone to blame. It is not a witch hunt. It's a strategic tool. It's about understanding why things went off track, so you can learn, adapt, and make much, much smarter plans for the future. Think of it as a feedback loop that helps you get better over time. And that really leaves us with one final question for you. You now have the detective's toolkit. You know how to read these clues. So the real question is, how are you going to use all this new intelligence to stop looking backward and start building a much sharper, more accurate forecast for your future?